Traveling is fun, as it should be. But as a tourist, there's a few things you might not even realize you're doing that seem really annoying to locals. Let's take a look at some tourist don'ts that drive people around you crazy. 19. Not considering the rules. One of the biggest things that annoy locals about tourists is that no matter what city or country you're in, you always get those tourists who just don't take into account the rules or customs. If you're going to be traveling to another place, you should probably do some research before you set off. For instance, tipping at bars and restaurants differs from region to region, country to country. No one's expecting you to know the local customs like the back of your hand without visiting the place first, but try to learn as much as you can. The locals will thank you. 18. Like home sweet home. Except not. Of course you would want to feel at home when you travel somewhere new, but the fact of the matter is, you won't. At least not at first. You can't just go into a new place and assume everything there works the same as it does at home. When you learn to adapt to the environment and culture, that's when you'll start to feel like this place is home. And then before you know it, it's time to leave. You won't want to leave though, since you've successfully acclimated to somewhere new. The way you greet people might be different. The way you pay for snacks at the store will require a different kind of currency. If you don't like the change, now you know you won't be traveling here again. 17. Learning escalator rules. If you come from a small town that doesn't have many subways or buildings that require a load of escalators, you probably aren't aware of escalator etiquette. That's right, folks. There is such a thing as escalator etiquette. In places like London or Washington, D.C., you're expected to stand on the right if you're not in a hurry so that the people who are in a hurry can walk past you on the left as they make their way up. It may seem like a small thing, but you'll learn quickly how annoyed the locals will get at you when you stand in their way. 16. Donning that tourist look. You know the look we're talking about. Sneakers or ugly sandals, hats, sunglasses, too many cameras, and a full backpack. Throw in a Hawaiian shirt and khaki shorts for some good measure, and you have the making of a tourist outfit. Do not wear these. Sure, they may be comfortable and you might feel better carrying 3 bottles of water, an extra set of clothes, a guidebook, and your passport with you. Just know that if you do this, it leaves nothing to the imagination. We all know you're a tourist. You know who else knows you're a tourist? Scammers and pickpocketers. Dress comfortably, like you would at home. 15. Talking too loud. Americans especially get accused of talking way too loud, whether that just be between themselves or talking louder in English thinking the Moroccan vendor will understand a language he doesn't know much better if you just crank up the volume. Please do not fall into this stereotype. Like the tourist outfit, you will stick out like a sore thumb if you speak too loudly and draw attention to yourself. This also isn't safe, especially in foreign countries where there's people looking to victimize any tourist. 14. Feeding the birds. In some places, you might think that pigeon feeding should be crossed off your to-do list when you visit, because you've seen people do it in movies. Granted, there's people in all sorts of cities and towns that love to feed the birds. Just keep in mind the ones that don't. Let's look at Paris. Feeding the pigeons there has become a favorite amongst tourist activities. You probably shouldn't do this though. At Venice's famous St. Mark's Square, they've even banned pigeon feeding because of the mess it makes and the nuisance it causes. 13. Tourist driving skills. Getting around on foot or by the bus and/or subway system might not be as easy as driving around, but don't forget that you're in a different place where the driving rules may not be completely the same, something that is emphasized by 100 when you travel to a foreign country. From driving on the other side of the road, not knowing local driving etiquette, or busy getting lost while trying to get to the beach, maybe driving in a new place isn't such a great idea. Plus, when the weather is different, there's another factor to watch out for. 12. To jaywalk or not. Depending on the place, if you're a frequent traveler, you have noticed that jaywalking rules vary. In places like China or parts of France, you can just walk into the road. Most of the time, you don't even look out for cars. In other cities, you acknowledge the car coming and cross anyway, or you adhere to the traffic signals very, very strictly because that's what's expected of you as a pedestrian. If you don't know what to do, a good rule of thumb is to just pay attention to the walking signals. But if you adapt to the jaywalking culture of a certain place, then just try to be safe. 11. Playing on the stereotypes. In India, residents will get annoyed at Westerners who come to India solely for yoga retreats without doing the proper research first. In Hawaii, it's attending those tourist-intended luau's. No matter what region tourists visit, there's always the groups that come there solely for the novelty. That's fine. Just don't expect residents to be nice to you about it. As a tourist, also try not to fall for the tourist trap places because it will be crowded, overpriced, and maybe even slightly sketchy. 10. Littering. Perhaps this doesn't apply to a lot of big cities, unless you're in an affluent part of town. This applies to more places like the beach, where you take a bunch of things with you like food, easily lost flip-flops, beach balls, parasols, and suntan lotion bottles. These things easily get left behind, leaving litter all over the sandy shore. While you no longer have to deal with this after you've had your fun and you're headed to the next tourist attraction, the people who have to see the beach every day do not appreciate it. 9. Risking it for selfies. Repeat after me. No selfie is worth your life. Got it? Good. It seems it's something you have to tell a lot of adults, since so many of them are willing to get as close to the edge of a cliff as possible to take a selfie. Why? Is it because you think people back at home won't believe you were there if you just take a picture of the landscape? That's fair. After all, remember that time Bow Wow posted a picture of a private jet, but everyone found out he was flying economy that day? Just keep in mind to stay at a safe distance from the cliff's edge for a photo op. 8. Bagpacking. Have you ever heard of bagpacking? That's when people from other countries, most of the time Westerners, come to less developed countries to beg on the streets as a way to fund their travels. Nobody's saying you don't have the right to beg if you really lost all your money somehow and it's an emergency and you need to get home. Bagpacking, on the other hand, means an international visit to the slums and then trying to live the same way as the people there when at the end of the day, they have means to leave this lifestyle, whereas the people in the slums may not. 7. Standing in parking spots. Locals probably do this too, but more often than not, for reasons unknown, tourists get accused of standing in parking spots in order to hold it for their group. Most establishments prohibit this sort of behavior anyway. Plus, you annoy the people who actually got there first with their cars. According to the certain state or city, holding a parking spot by standing in it may even be considered illegal. So if you don't want to have to resort to parking spot holding, just take a bus, taxi, or Uber there instead. 6. The center of the universe. For some reason, tourists adopt this serve me mentality when they go places, especially abroad. Not sure where all this entitlement comes from, but it isn't cute. Being comfortable in a space and acting like you own the place can be two different things. Chances are, people around you don't care where you came from and will care even less so when you act rude. If you're in a tour group, it may be irritating waiting on people who are taking too much time to get back to the meetup point or are behaving in a way that makes the whole group look bad. 5. Getting in the way. Sure, you're cherishing memories by stopping on the sidewalk and taking a photo of that cool building or the nice view over the bridge. Try your best, however, to not get in the way. It gets extremely irritating if you're trying to get to your workplace and a bunch of tourists have stopped either at the crossing or in the bike lane when they should be on the pedestrian lane. Pay attention to all your surroundings, not just the pretty ones. 4. Not respecting monuments. We get it. Sometimes you absolutely have to bring your kids along with you on vacation. It can be difficult managing their tantrums and used up diapers, but hey, it comes with parenting. Just don't use them to dunk into the fountain in a famous square. More than that, don't dunk anything into any fountain because A, you don't know how dirty it is, and B, you yourself might be making it dirty by doing so. Respect monuments. Don't sit on them, climb up them, or anything else just for a photo op. 3. Disrespecting the food. Not everyone has the same sense of taste as everyone else. So if you don't like a certain favorite local dish, that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. What really peeves locals, however, is when tourists come in, order the staple dish, and then proceed to make a huge deal out of how they don't like it. This goes in hand with that rule we talked about earlier. Don't expect things to be like they are at home. If you don't like the food, just don't eat it again. Of course, in some places like Southeast Asia, the bacteria in the food is different than if you're from the United States. As a foreigner, be mindful of where you choose to eat, lest you end up in the toilet all vacation. 2. Not learning language basics. No one's expecting you to master a language right before you leave for your trip, least of all Mandarin or Cantonese if you're headed to China, since we heard that's one of the most difficult languages to learn besides English. Speaking of English, hey, English speakers, don't always assume that English is a default language. While yes, most places in the world will have a population of people that know English, or at least a little bit, be courteous and at least learn the basics of French, Spanish, Russian, Thai, or whatever language it is of the place you're spending a week in. 1. Traveling in huge groups. It can be comforting traveling with both people you know or people who come from the same place you do. Just know that when you travel in huge groups, not only will everyone know you're a tourist, because duh, you will also be the cause of a lot of foot traffic on the street and in train stations and at the airport. Traveling alone might be a little unsafe, so try to travel with at least one other person. Plus, when you're not doing the tourist group thing, you're more likely to experience local life, which may prove more enriching. Safe travels! Let us know in the comments if you're guilty of committing any of these traveling fouls. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon!